We've got some fresh images of 3I Atlas, a third ever interstellar object observed from Earth.
The sky is going through something that has never happened before right now. After a sudden increase in light that no one can explain, telescopes all over the world have focused on a strange interstellar object known as 3I Atlas.
He went on to talk about a Manhattan-sized interstellar object. He's been on the show talking about it a lot. It's called 3I Atlas.
Within hours, experts, space agencies, and observatories all over the world dropped everything to look into it. What they found next shocked even the experts. Watch out, because what's going on in space could change the way we see the world for good. The signal nobody could deny. It started as a quiet night in Jena, Germany. The air was still, the stars sharp, and nothing about the sky hinted that something impossible was about to happen. Maria Schultz sat behind her modest 12-inch telescope, the kind made by patience and saved allowances, not by billion-dollar space projects. She had spent hundreds of nights catching faint light curves of comets, so she knew when her data didn't make sense at 1:14 a.m. UTC, her screen flashed with numbers that refused to behave. The light from 3I Atlas.
A theoretical physicist says the answer is maybe. He suggests a Manhattan-sized object known as 3I Atlas.
A cosmic traveler already famous among astronomers had jumped. Not slowly, not like a comet turning its icy face to the sun, but suddenly, like someone had flipped a cosmic switch. Her photometry software screamed out the change, a 1.4 magnitude leap in just 6 minutes. That's a 4-fold increase in brightness, something no comet, asteroid, or piece of space rock should ever do that fast. She didn't fear. She did what good watchers do. She checked her tuning stars, each one shining steady and perfect. She reran the results. Still the same. The spike wasn't just noise. It was true. She quickly shared her results on an amateur astronomy forum and included the raw light curve so that anyone could check them. The graph looked very simple. It had a flat line, a jump up and down, and then another flat line at a new level. There is no ramp up. There is no fade. Not a beat. One step. After 30 minutes, the answers started to show up. New Zealanders who are watching. Arizona. Bucharest. Sao Paulo. Every post had a line that matched hers to the minute. There are different cameras and hemispheres, but the form is still impossible. Even the site for citizen science, called Skywatch Collective, lit up with green check marks as more proof came in. By dawn, what began as a strange reading by one woman had become a real event happening all over the world. Astronomers, who were just for fun, were watching the same object from opposite ends of the world and seeing the same strange flash. No model could wear it. The 2007 17P/Holmes comet explosion was the brightest one ever seen. It took almost 2 days for it to reach its peak. Even the famous Oumuamua.
It was the very first object that we had ever discovered that had originated outside the solar system,
which was the first person to visit another star system, changed brightness and darkness with the slow rhythm of spin. However, 3I Atlas had not done any of that. It changed quickly, sharply, and permanently, like a pulse that never stopped. The info was too good to throw away. There were no moving clouds, camera problems, or changes in the atmosphere. Even though the instruments were different, the theme was the same. Every point on the curve, every view, and every timestamp all showed the same thing. This happened. The wave then came. Hashtags like #AtlasAnomaly and #InterstellarSpike went viral on social media sites. The hosts of live streams that were supposed to be about meteor showers had to scramble to explain graphs that were moving faster than they could talk. Every screen showed the same light curve, a short jump up and down that made experts blink in shock. It became clearer as more people checked. This wasn't a trick or a fake. People who wanted to show it wrong uploaded, looked at, and confirmed thousands of raw images. The group just did a real-time review of itself with its peers. By the next morning, The question wasn't whether it was real or not, but what might have caused it. A message was already being typed somewhere in NASA's mission center. It was an urgent request that would make the biggest antennas in the world look at that one point of light. The domino effect. The wave hit faster than anyone thought the night Maria Schultz posted her data. A quiet warning came into NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, while amateurs compared graphs online. Everything changed with one line of text. Ask for instant tracking of 3I Atlas by radar.
In the case of 3I Atlas, as soon as it was discovered, 20 kilometers, which is huge.
In the control room for the Deep Space Network, where seconds and millions of kilometers are used to measure time, that message meant chaos. Every antenna in the world, including those in California, Madrid, and Canberra, had its schedule worked out months in advance. Every minute was dedicated to a task. Voyager spoke from the edge of the solar system, and Perseverance sent pictures from Mars. It wasn't normal to change that plan. It would be like telling air traffic control to stop all flights around the world to keep an eye on one plane. But none of the models fit the numbers from 3I Atlas. The spike in the light curve wasn't a glitch, and radar proof was now the only way to tell if the object's speed had changed. Mission leads, schedulers, and engineers from 3 countries jumped right into the meeting. There were data windows that came up. For every hour they tracked 3I Atlas, they would miss 22 hours of data from Mars. Surface readings, temperature data, and even pictures taken by the rover would start to pile up in memory, and it could overflow. People didn't want to make that call, but quickly the window shut. The radar could no longer lock onto 3I Atlas because it was going out of range. It mattered every second. At 3:24 TC, the choice was made. A choice by everyone. The antennas would turn around. 70-meter dishes started to move through the desert night. They were the world's biggest moving structures. Bots built to talk to each other across the solar system are now aiming at a faint, foreign light. As if keeping a record of history, engineers wrote down every order. They knew what it meant. Something strong enough to stop all running missions. After hours, the sacrifice got bigger. One of NASA's experienced satellites got a new sequence while it was in orbit around Mars. Engineers requested a 1.2 meter per second thruster burn to keep looking at 3I Atlas for longer. This seems like a small thing, but it costs a lot in real life. 5 kilograms of hydrazine were used up, which is about a tenth of the orbiter's leftover fuel. That fuel was gone for good after it was burned. It made the ship last months or even years shorter. The choice could not be changed. Giving up a piece of Mars science to look into a question about other stars was a trade that could not be undone. The engineers did the math again, wrote down the risk, and then pressed the order key. The orbiter turned, thrusters went off, and its cameras locked on to the locations. The data came home in a stream. It was raw, unprocessed, and valuable. There was a track for every step. Digital signatures, timestamps, and written agreements were all proof that logic hadn't been thrown out, just stretched. It wasn't fear. Controlled anxiety, like when you're on the verge of finding something new and being in danger at the same time. The teams in the Deep Space Network knew what would happen, but they didn't think twice about it. That day, 3 countries had changed their deep space equipment to aim at the same thing. In Goldstone, Madrid, and Canberra, antennas worked together to send radar waves into the dark. It would take hours to figure out what came back. But one thing was certain: a single strange event had just changed the world's largest information network. As things in space looked up, something even bigger was going on below. The biggest telescopes in the world were about to follow, each changing their plans, stopping projects, and breaking their own rules to look at the same strange light. The night the world's telescopes stopped. By the time the Deep Space Network's antennas locked onto 3I Atlas, the wave had already reached the most powerful telescopes on Earth. It became impossible to keep to the plans that had been set for months. Research projects, proposals, and tests that had been planned for years and had millions of dollars set aside were all stopped at the last minute. At the control room of the European Southern Observatory in Chile, the Very Large Telescope was meant to catch a picture of an alien planet passing in front of its star. That one event had been planned a year ahead of time, and the time frame wouldn't come up again for 10 years. But the override order still got there. Stop the transit and aim again at 3I Atlas. Over the course of decades, instruments were readjusted, domes were rotated, and mirrors that had been aimed at other worlds were now turned toward a mystery visitor coming across the solar system. Gemini North came after them in Hawaii. It stopped working in the middle of its planned scan of faraway galaxies. The operators put in new numbers without saying a word. On the other side of the Pacific, China's FAST, which is the world's biggest radio telescope, ended a pulsar time campaign. This is the type of campaign that watches the heartbeat of dying stars. These big telescopes were all focused on the same thing for the first time, but they didn't know what it was yet. There were fees for each withdrawal, many hours of lost time for watching, delays in whole PhD projects, and research grants that need to be rewritten. But no one spoke out. It wasn't about who owned what anymore. It was about the time. All over the world, committees worked hard to fill in the blanks. Night managers in Chile, Hawaii, Japan, and South Africa worked together through emergency lines to set up a relay that could follow 3I Atlas around the world as night fell in different parts of the world. The job was to keep an eye on it all the time and make sure that no data was lost. One time, observatories fought for sky time, but now they passed the target like a baton, giving each other exposure logs and calibration settings in real time. At 7:30 UTC, the event went from being amazing to being significant. An emergency meeting was called by the International Astronomical Union. This had only happened twice before in modern times. 11 people who could vote showed up on the private line. They were presidents, vice presidents, and national delegates from every major research hub on Earth. It was a short but tense discussion. Some people wanted full openness and real-time information for the public. Others told people to be careful and warned that jumping to conclusions too quickly could lead to false information. By law, there had to be a clear majority to move. After the roll call, the final score was 8 in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstention. It was agreed upon. The IAU told everyone to put 3I Atlas at the top of their list of priorities, share all observational data right away, and hold off on making public comments until they had been checked by someone else. From Cape Town to Tokyo, the order lit up screens as it spread through encrypted networks. In terms of science, it was the same as putting the whole world on high alert. The walls that had separated institutions for generations were gone for a few valuable hours. There were no rivalries, limits based on nationalism, or bans on signing. Spectra, exposure logs, and radar readings were just some of the data that was moving easily through secure channels like lifeblood. Each mirror and receiver was tuned to the same point of light, making telescopes on opposite parts of the world work together as one. The researchers agreed on what it meant. Their own work would be put on hold, their papers would come out later, and they would lose citations. But no one said anything. Scientists who looked at that object knew they were a part of something that people would always remember. It had become more important to understand than any one job or country. The silence before the truth. The noise stopped as soon as the IAU's order went into effect. It didn't happen slowly. It was full of data threads, telescope logs, and excited comments one minute and nothing at all the next. Feeds that were full of news about 3IATLAS stopped updating. Not a tweet, no posts.
NASA scientists first spotting 3I Atlas in July, just a tiny speck of light sailing through a sea of stars.
There are no light shapes or spectra. There were no more preprint sites. It was so quiet on private researcher channels that are usually full of chatter and friendly discussion. The quiet wasn't a mistake. It was done on purpose. Observatories were told to limit contact with the public until the verification process was finished. From the outside, though, it looked like science had been turned off. Astronomers had stopped talking to each other for the first time in as long as people could remember. There was silence, but the data was still moving, and it was now going through gates that were encrypted. Every few hours, radar teams at Goldstone and Canberra kept sending pings to 3I/ATLAS to find out where it was. The thing they found didn't match any model they knew of. The thing wasn't going in the direction that gravity said it should. Instead, it was steadily speeding up about 4 times faster than solar energy could explain. Software was to blame, say, engineers. The temperature models were to blame. Following that, they took the blame. But each time they were checked again, they were fine. The error bars got smaller with each new measurement, but the strange thing stayed the same. Something invisible was making the item move faster, and no one could explain it. At the same time, the James Webb Space Telescope pointed its infrared tools at the target. Its sensors are made to pick up on the smallest signs of heat from galaxies far away. But what it picked up from 3I/ATLAS didn't make sense. The surface stayed 30 Kelvin warmer than expected, which was too warm for sunlight to bounce and too stable for gases to escape. The numbers were run again by the calibration teams, who ruled out contamination and sensor shift. The plateau didn't move. It shouldn't have been warm, but it was. After some time, the Fermi and Swift space telescopes saw something else. A weak flash of gamma rays. It wasn't very strong, just above the background noise, but its coordinates were straight on with 3I/ATLAS. There was no flash, not a pulsar. There has been no known stellar event in that part of space. The timing was right within seconds of the last report from the radar team on the path. Each of these results could have been brushed off as a mistake or a chance on its own. But when they worked together, they made a picture that no one could miss. A steady speeding up, a heat that can't be explained, and a weak flash of radiation, all coming from the same small area of sky. It was no longer just a rock in space. Things seemed to be under control with it. The smartest people in the world stop talking when they see something they don't fully understand. The cost of knowing. The cost had already been put in the logs by the time the data finally became stable. There are no longer any 22-hour blocks of deep space network time. Whole downlinks to Mars were lost, and important telemetry was saved and overwritten. 5 kilograms of hydrazine were burned from the supplies of an old orbiter, which cut its life by several months. 3 important observatories, the Very Large Telescope, Gemini North, and FAST, had to cancel their plans, which took away thousands of study hours and put careers on hold. It wasn't chaos. It was the precise and selfless price of being curious. There had been times in history like this before. Scientists were amazed and scared as Shoemaker Levy 9 slammed into Jupiter in 1994. It was the strangest event that had ever been recorded. When Oumuamua drifted by in 2007, its strange speed made every theory of how celestial bodies move look wrong. Each time, fear gave way to progress, and the impossible turned into a new part of what people know. However, 3IATLAS was not the same. Fear stayed with them longer this time than answers. There was a quiet argument going on in the scientific world. Should the people be able to see the results? Some said yes, because science can only grow in light. Others said that unprocessed info that wasn't explained could cause chaos. Being honest versus being careful. Curiosity versus being careful. The technology that brought people together during discoveries could also tear them apart during rumors. After the event, new plans arose for AI-powered rapid response networks that would be able to move telescopes, satellites, and even spaceships within minutes. Self-sufficient probes that could quickly and easily catch the next visitor from another star system. People had learned that the world doesn't wait for groups to decide what to do. Even so, there were still people behind every algorithm and sensor. They were tired, amazed, and uncomfortable. No one could deny the truth that the event left behind. Even with all of our tools and knowledge, we are still beginners listening to a world that speaks in mysteries we barely understand. And that's how the mystery of 3I/ATLAS began. If this story blew your mind, like, share, and subscribe for more discoveries. Don't go yet. Click the next video now popping up on your screen.